Nowadays we have 7 to 8 disaster strikes every month in Vanuatu in different areas. We have more and more cyclones coming, and even the weather patterns, it's not like before. In these days, there's very, very heavy rains, and we could see the sea level rise. Now it's chasing the people who live near the coastlines. They are moving further up.
Some villages are sinking slowly. We've seen a change in climate.
For some islands, the wells are like salty because of the no longer fresh because the sea level rise. If they want to get clean water, they have to go far for the streams, and for persons with disability, it's so difficult going long distance and it's not accessible. Few people, when they get sick, they boil the water, but because it's a lot of hard work, they cannot boil water every day.
For persons with disabilities, there is a warning for tsunami, but where do we go to? Who would take us?
Me being blind, I don't know if a cyclone is happening. If I run outside, there's gonna be a flying object flying directly at me and I can't see it.
A tsunami warning, I remember. And the second time it happened when I moved into this settlement. It was dark, it was in the evening, and I remember it was just myself and my husband had just gone out to a friend's place. And then we were asked to leave right then and there, you know, you need to get to higher ground. There were these boys who were part of the rugby club from the settlement. Then somehow 2 or 3 boys, they came running and they wanted to help me out. They knew that my husband had gone out. They said, "We'll take you, don't worry." They called me Auntie Meme in the settlement. They said, "Auntie Meme, we'll take you, don't worry, just come. We'll take your chair out and this one is going to carry you." And you know, they were just sorting things out. And I said, "See, if it's hard to take me, you guys go. You run for your lives. You guys are much younger. You need still a long way to go. Don't worry about me. You leave me behind."
When I go out to the community, I tend to hear the reality of what persons with disability are going through. They are facing change in weather patterns. The planting of vegetables, the seasonings of fruits from trees tend to change. And the access to water. In those that live in the rural, remote areas or in the coastal, they've noticed coastal erosion happening, increasing sea level. That has also affected their livelihoods. The backyard gardening that they tend to plant are being disrupted by the waves coming in, and it's not growing as it used to be before.
Like this one we call cassava, and back in 1960 to 70s, 80s, that's our crop. And this one, it took about 2.5 years to reach that size. But back in 60s, in 8 months to 16 months, all the crop reach that size. So you see the big difference from 8 to 16 months and 2.5 years.
For the rising temperature, I think is becoming more challenging nowadays. You can get your skin burning, and especially for the disabilities who cannot move fast, because most people they depend on gardening for their food and survival, so they cannot walk for a long time in their garden because of the temperature.
One of the person was sharing about how he saw a lot of his family members started to run to the inland. He has no idea what's happening because he couldn't hear the early warning signs.
Vanuatu doesn't have any national sign language. At the moment they're developing one, but people who are deaf cannot access the education system because we do not have any national sign language. When we had this landslide in 2013 in the southern part where a woman, she's deaf, she had 6 children and she's pregnant at the same time. One of the NGO staffs, they went up there to tell the community, you need to move out because a landslide might come. But all the women escaped and they ran away. They didn't share the information to the woman who is deaf. 2 days after, the landslide fell and she's gone with the babies, with the children.
People with disabilities do not have the support that they need during the disaster, especially if the evacuation centers are not accessible.
Most evacuation centers, if I come to this building and the door is little and my wheelchair is too big, that's it. I just have to stay outside or I have to go down and crawl. And this is not what we wanted to look very bad. People are watching us crawling.
Like Cyclone Palm in 2015, I have to move from my home to an evacuation center. And I called and said, oh, you can't come here because you are a wheelchair user. The toilet and bathroom is upstairs.
There has been recent floodings in the past few years due to the climate change. And you can see that the river is getting wider now. For people with disabilities, they don't want to go to the evacuation center because they tend to see that it's not disability friendly. So what some of them tend to see, they just double the beds. They double the beds and sit on top. If they don't want to go to their friend's house or to the relative's house, they'll just stay there. They'll just sit on top of the bed until the water goes out, and then they can come down again. It really put them at risk, because some of them, because of the diseases that come in now, the leptospirosis, because whenever there's a flood, their house is underwater.
You remember that saying, knowledge is power? For us people who are blind, if we don't not get the information, that means we don't understand the affairs of the world, and we tend to left behind from our society. Recently, we've launched the disaster risk management booklets from the Disaster Management Office, which is now translated into Braille, so that the blind community will aware of how to respond when an earthquake occurs or maybe a cyclone, so that we do not rely on our families to tell us what to do. We are able ourselves to read and to learn on how to cope with disasters and mitigate the risk of climate change.
When disasters is approaching the country, we activate our Emergency Operations Center, Disability Sector Emergency Operations Center in this very room, where we start to coordinate with our 16 branches and start to communicate on the severity of the different situation reports.
We are part of the working committee for the sign language, and different organizations that are a part of the working group. We were tasked to look at the different actions, how you sign, maybe a cyclone coming. So now the education department is putting the sign language together, not only coming out from the education department, but it's coming out from all our members in Vanuatu.
People with disabilities should be involved in the design, implementation, and also monitoring of disaster risk management.
But we have to be resilient. We had our training just last month with our organizations of persons with disabilities who are in 6 provinces across Vanuatu, and we told them we need to have a plan, escape plan. We need to make sure that people with disabilities are evacuated before a cyclone or a disaster strike.
When we talk about resilient people, we are already resilient. We've been living through this climate in the past almost how many decades ago, and we're still here. So that is a true definition of resilience. For persons with disabilities specific, that they're able to live through this.
I'm fortunate because where I live, for the past 25 years, there was no footpath. 6 years ago, there was a meeting that was held, and there was this old man who was living temporarily with his family there. He suggested that they work on a footpath, and the reason being was this. He said, I noticed a woman living down inside of the settlement being carried, rain or shine. She's carried on the husband's back or someone else's back, and her chair would be taken up by somebody to wait for her on the roadside. And I just think that we should work on a footpath that, she may be taken in a more dignified way up to the roadside to board her vehicle or the transport at the roadside. There were those who contributed a bag of cement, and there were those who would cook and provide lunch for the boys who were working on that. But when I get off the taxi, there are children as little who haven't even gone to kindy who would run up and say, want to pick my bag. And I'm always thinking, Lord, that this God is watching me and protecting me, and He's got His hands everywhere. And even if I'm coming late in the evening, I know that there's always someone who's going to be there.